sixth generation rancher from central Nebraska. My wife Kelly and I raised 3 daughters, 100 sows, 100 cows, and 20 horses. So while I'm here with you, she's at home. People often ask me, well, Trent, how big is your ranch? Because obviously you're not going to be there for the next 110 days. I always tell them the truth. It's just as big as my wife can handle. And really that speaks to what the whole community that we're talking about here is, the family unit. And that's really what it's about. So, you know, I want to just give you a little bit of a background, and that is that Robert David Steele, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, had a vision. He talked to some people, Sasha Stone's involved, and we really didn't know what we're going to do. It's not an accident I told you that 4 days ago Mickey didn't know that even about the Arise USA tour. Am I making that up, Mickey? No. He might at this moment be wishing he still didn't know about the Arise USA tour, but that's another story. This is a God thing. And we have been on the road since Thursday night, 9 days ago, and every time things just fall in place and come together. All right, that's happening here. There was no scheduled effort to go find certain places and find a meeting and find a story. We just had local volunteers, and Tonya worked effortlessly here, and we're going to introduce her and her organization later. But we ended up today in Fredericksburg, Texas. And for those of you that call Gillespie County home, you know the rest of this story. The rest of this story is that in 1885, there was a young man born in Gillespie County in Fredericksburg, Texas. Anybody know what his name was? Chester Nimitz. And everybody who's involved in the Navy, like that young man standing right there, knows the impact Chester Nimitz made. Chester Nimitz lived until 1966, and he was very instrumental in several things. He took over command of Pearl Harbor in December 1941. He was sent to Germany to study the diesel combustion engine, and he was the first person to put a diesel engine on an American military vessel. How did that assist us? You know, there's so many things that he did. He was the individual that was on the Missouri, the battleship the Missouri, and signed the peace agreement with Japan. And this is where he calls home. This is where the high school today that pays tribute to this gentleman who on this Memorial Day 2021 represents all of those who've sacrificed so much in the name of freedom and liberty. So there's just one more thing about Chester Nimitz that I want to tell you. Because I assure you, Robert David Steele, no matter what kind of hogwash he tells you when he comes up here, he did not know the story of what made Chester Nimitz, the Admiral Chester Nimitz, really famous. He was the commander of all the pig boats. The pig boats that were the submarines that literally won World War I, World War II for us. And you're going to know why I say that that's significant and why it's a God thing when Robert David Steele comes up here. He commanded the pig boats. And the final thing that I want to say about this hero is the fact that what I did write down is something I did not want to screw up, because he was most noted for commonly, repeatedly talking about cheerful yesterdays and confident tomorrows. We've had a path in front of us that's been fantastic, behind us that's been fantastic. And you are here because you are confident that you're going to be one of the next people to take this country back to family, faith, freedom. And it all happens right here in the hill country of Texas with no further ado, the pig boat man himself, Robert David Steele.
I love the U.S. Navy, best bus drivers in the country. Well, one World War II was landing craft with Marines on it. But God bless the United States Navy. I'm a naval officer, not just a Marine Corps officer. And we all work together. The Air Force likes to fly around and do acrobatics. The Army likes to build really big, expensive shit that doesn't work. But Coast Guard gets to kill people wearing ball caps and boat shoes. This is cool. And they stay home at night. Our military is one of the greatest militaries in the world. However, the military-industrial complex is not. You know, I've got some angels trying to help me to clean up that language. So I won't talk about these people. There are some choice terms. Are you okay with Miss Pinky up here? Yeah. By the way, she doesn't think you know who she is. So, I just want to talk for 3 minutes today. You've all seen it before. 3 big issues are election fraud, Wall Street treason and crime, and satanic pedophilia. And we're doing something on that. I got 10 websites, I got 4 movies, Sasha's making the 5th. We got 6 coaches here, including Scott McKay. And the bottom line is, I think America's coming together. There is no racial divide. The only divide here is between the 99% and the 1%. So my bottom line is, why are you giving money to any politician as long as we have a rate system? And I specifically condemn my old party, the Republican Party. There's no difference. Now, I got a cartoon and I'm handing out some things that you can fold up and then mail to your congressman with a personal message. Until you have hashtag unreal election reform with the 12 specific things that I've pulled together over these years, you don't have a country. You're not in charge. So you need to tell every politician you know that they are fired unless they sponsor hashtag unreal election reform. It's that simple. I believe our legally elected President Donald Trump is doing really great work behind the scenes. I expect to see him at Mount Rushmore on the 3rd of July. And Fred Bruce, our ground commander, has secured for us the park at the base of Mount Rushmore on the 4th of July. And Sasha Stone, the British guy, or my guest, Sasha around here, with his curly hair and his little pig feet socks. You know, he is going to put on a show at Mount Rushmore that is going to knock America's socks off. Hollywood couldn't even come close. Because it's going to be authentic. It's not going to be make-believe. So I want to end now because I'm setting an example for all of my speakers who have been given 3 to 5 minutes for the recurring speakers and 7 to 10 minutes for the new speakers, including David Avocado Wolf. And I'm being followed by, I just want to say this, I'm being followed by a representative for Sheriff Richard Mack. I cannot tell you how inspirational Sheriff Mack has been to me. He is the second most important man in the United States of America after President Donald Trump. Because a constitutional sheriff who deputizes citizens can take on every form of federal, state, and local abuse. And I'm going to tell you right here, most, not all, federal, state, and local officials have been bribed, blackmailed, or brainwashed to be the 1% puppets against you. That's what we have to change. I'm happy. I'm happier than I've been in the last 30 years. And I have never been a Bible thumper. But what's happening now is Jesus is coming to us, I'm coming to you, we're coming to Jesus, and it's about Jesus at the ground level. Yeah. I got an angel that's getting me to stop lighting these things. Phil, this is how I communicate with Bill Biden. But the bottom line is I'm trying not to curse. It's hard for me. I rip people's heads off every once in a while. There are a few that need ripping off. But by and large, I'm trying to become a better person. And I'm absolutely certain that we are becoming a better community. And Juan Sabin says we're going to get gut punched. You are going to see some dark days. But do not for 1 second believe that God is abandoned. Thank you all.
I can't wait to see the response to the pig socks. That's going to be fun. All right, Robert did just lie to you, though. He does not communicate with Joe Biden. He's uncommunicatable. And I'm not talking about Robert. All right. So, with that, he's now trying to take my job as well as his job. We're going to introduce the next guy who represents really what I see as the core solution for what is all of our frustration that comes back at the county level. The reason that we talk about Gillespie County, the reason we talk about Brazos County where we were last night is because we have to stop focusing so much on the federal government and take care of matters at home. And the guy who's going to lead us through that, Rick Dalton, with the Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association from Mesa, Arizona. Rick, the floor is yours.
What an audience, what a venue, and what a country. I'm sorry, but this wind, there's stuff blowing out of the trees and I have allergies and you never know what we're going to hit. I start leaking. Folks, we are America. The word means something. That country has been blessed and protected by God. And we, as peace officers, as I speak for us, yes, they call us law enforcement officers, but we all took an oath. So did everybody who's been in the military, everybody who has been a police officer or an elected official. The oath needs to be sacred, folks. And the oath doesn't expire when you retire either. I spent 20 years and 42 days on Mesa, Arizona Police Department from 1978 to 98. My oath is still as important and maybe more sacred to me now than it was then. I didn't know the Constitution when I swore the oath. Most police officers don't, because they're not taught it in the academy. We had a constitutional law class in the academy for 16 hours. We never once opened the Constitution. We never once read about it. We read court cases. They call it case law. That's got to change. That changed for me, by the way. And I began teaching the Constitution. And the way I met Sheriff Mack, by the way, it is an honor for me to fill in for him, let me tell you. The way I met Sheriff Mack, he hired me. He knew that I was speaking, giving constitutional courses all over the country for the National Center for Constitutional Studies. Look it up. They're still doing seminars today. There's a free seminar online. Sheriff Mack hired me to come to his sheriff's office down in Sanford, Arizona, to teach all of his deputies the Constitution, the real Constitution, the details. He made them all sit through it. He made them listen to me. That was probably hard for some of them. But let me tell you, the Constitution is thrilling because freedom is thrilling. Let me tell you, more powerful than any invading army is an idea whose time has come. That idea under God is liberty. We have got to make it real again. We've got to make our children see it. We've got to raise them up. Now, Sheriff Mack stood up against the Clinton administration, I guess you know that, and the Brady bill, and said, wait a minute, we don't have to enforce your Brady bill. The Fed said, oh yeah, you do. He said, no, I don't work for you guys. I work for the people who elected me. I'm an elected sheriff. I work for them. And they said, well, then we're going to have to arrest you and everything else. He said, go on soon. Long story short, it went to the United States Supreme Court. There's a little summary that you can get on the website. I'm not sure if Tonya or if they have books or not. There's a little summary of that case. Mack, Prince versus U.S. The Supreme Court said, and by the way, Justice Scalia wrote the decision, said that, let me read this. Residual state sovereignty was also implicit, this is a quote, of course, in the Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers, but only discrete, enumerated ones. And he said, in the decision elsewhere, the Constitution, I'm showing it now. Okay, Tonya's telling me that they do have them. You can get it. They cannot commandeer a state or local officer to enforce, assist with, or otherwise do anything with a federal law enforcement or regulatory scheme. So they can't do it, and we gotta refuse to do it. And what they do today is they tie up police agencies, including some county sheriff's offices, by federal funds. They give federal grants if you do this, if you do that. We cannot take, it's just like your stimmy. Your stimmy, your stimulus check. How many people are chomping at the bit, sucking at the federal tip right now? How many people? Millions. Millions. Now, the county sheriff is America's last hope. Sheriff Mack's first book, this very thing. The county sheriff, America's last hope. Within his own jurisdiction, the county sheriff has more power than the President of the United States. Within his jurisdiction. Now, the Constitution gives certain powers to the federal government, and through a doctrine called federalism, they separated powers, not only horizontally, federal, state, and local. I'm sorry, that's wrong one. Executive, judicial, and legislative, but they separated powers vertically. Local, which is the bottom, which is the most powerful, then state, then county, then federal. They separated that way. There are some areas where the federal government is supreme, but only in those enumerated powers. One example is raising an army and a navy and enforcing what? Immigration laws, protecting our borders. But every state has an absolute authority and a duty to protect its own borders and its own people if the federal government doesn't do it. And you guys, I understand you guys have a pretty good, governor here in Arizona. I see him on the news and see good things about him. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Well, I wouldn't say that about our governor in Arizona on purpose. It was a mistake. Here in Texas, you got a great, hey, and you know what? I learned there's something to be said, there's meaning in that phrase, don't mess with Texas. Yes, all right, well, now what can you do? The bottom line is, we can't do it without you. Okay, by the way, we are you. Your police officers, your county sheriff, we're your neighbors. We're supposed to be working together. There should not be any schism between us. So please, you should know the officers, the deputies, whoever it is that serve your area, that if you call, you need to know who they are. The ones that are going to come, invite them to a community meeting. Find out who they are. Remember, many are already constitutionally mine, and many will not enforce certain federal mandates and executive orders already. You know, many of them, I see us all over the country. Many of the local regular police officers you don't even know will not enforce an unconstitutional order, which isn't a law anyway. Now, the ones that are indoctrinated, let's say, don't hate them. The same cop, the same deputy sheriff who will violate your rights because he doesn't know better, and sadly enough, that's not really an excuse, because they took an oath to know it, but the same cop that will do that will take a bullet for you 5 minutes later. You gotta understand it, okay? You gotta make sure you hold them accountable, and make sure they know you got their back, because the hatred of government authority, and especially law enforcement, is on purpose, is to divide the nation. All right, folks, so you gotta know it. If you don't know the Constitution yourself, you can't defend your own rights. If you don't know it. If you're not studying it regularly and in depth, you are not doing your duty as a citizen. Your defense, including the Second Amendment, of course, it's more than a right, it's a duty to defend yourself, including the other rights listed in the Bill of Rights. Finally, let me just say this. I want to see meetings like this all over the United States. I want to see you attending local constitutional study courses. You can have a local constitutional course. You need to do it. You need to know it backwards and forwards. You need to know if a proposed law is constitutional or not, and you need to be able to explain why. All right? It's an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to fill in for Sheriff Mack. For the next 11 days, we'll be back on tour when the tour hits Phoenix, and I'll go home. God bless you. God bless America. And let's get this done.
Hey, I just want to remind you, when you go back there and talk to Tonya about Sheriff Mack's books, she did the legwork to get this thing put together, visiting with Mickey. So make sure you say thank you, Tonya, for making this happen. One other little thing. Don't leave home without it. This is a pocket constitution. And on the back, it says, I pledge to read this pocket constitution. I have personally handed out 2,000 of them in the last 30 days and told people to sign the back and read this constitution. It takes a 3-hour plane ride if you're a pitiful poor reader like me. All right? I'm just saying. Okay, up next is a guy from somewhere in Texas who was smart enough to get out of the whack job country of California. I don't know why he came to Texas. Texas knows he's here. Maybe you haven't heard of him in Hill Country. Most people call him Scott McKay out of Patriot.
Hello. What an incredible time. You know, most of you know I was working in elected politics for 16 years, trying to track myself to get to the United States Senate one day. It was my dream where I wanted to pull the curtain back on all the politicians, both parties, like Donald Trump has done. And let me ask you a question. How many of you here have ever seen anybody from the RNC put together something like Robert David Seals put on here? Cross-country tour. Bring the country back. Nobody. People wonder why I attack the Republican Party. It's taken you, we the people, to do what they refuse to do, or fail to do to us our whole lives. And so, you know, and I want you to know, is the only reason I'm on this tour, we were going to do a Patriot Street Fighter tour, but we weren't going to do it in the fashion that we're doing it now, and that's all because of Steele. Now, I'll tell you something about Steele. I call everybody out. When I heard him up there saying, I never ripped people's heads off, I'm like, we got to call this one out today. Where is he? Where is Robert David Steele? Okay. Yeah, we're going to call him out. He ripped my head off just before I got here. I made a phone call. We don't have time for these kind of calls. Click. I'm telling you, there's some love somewhere deep inside that body of his. I'm going to find it, and when I get it, I'm going to bring it back here and I'm going to show all of it, because I know it's there. I don't let it hurt my feelings. I learned this right out of the gate. This is how this guy operates. I'm like, Scott, put that in the box, leave it there, because it's going to get dented, all dented, if you keep that up and give him an opportunity to dent that thing. So, but he's done an amazing job. He's got a lot of logistics to handle. Trent, I've been talking to him for the last couple of weeks. What these guys have to deal with, state to state, city to city, to put this thing together, believe me, nobody in the Republican National Committee would do this. They would just have their hand out and say, give me money, and I support their mission. Stop giving the Republican National Committee money. Give it to the people who want to deserve freedom, and they're going to salute you. So Patriot Street Fighter has two purposes. purposes is to travel the country, three actually. It's to start identifying these politicians at all levels for what the vast majority of them are. They're scumbags. They're people that work for you. You pay their salaries. You tell them what you want them to do for your city, your county, your state, your government, and they refuse to do it. No matter how many times you replace them with somebody else, the same people go in there and do the same damn thing. They fork all of us, and that's why I decided we're going to turn the tide. I'm going to call these people scumbags every day until you realize that that's what the vast majority of people are. They're scumbags at all levels. And I just jumped on a woman who ran for state representative in Pennsylvania. I won't mention her name today. But then I found out she will not address the election theft that took her seat from her, but she's now going to run for the Senate in Pennsylvania. That was a bad move. Trust me, after I was done with her, she's not going to win. And I will ensure she will not win. I'm going to take every Republican I know, every street fighter, paper street fighter, do not support this person. If they won't fight to get their election that was stolen from them and fight every day to get their rightfully elected seat, what the hell is she going to do in the state senate? Right? This is where this bullshit has to end. So there are two other things. Patriot Street Fighter is a smoke-out operation. That's what it is. We're going to find out who everybody is. I've been uninvited to great big churches, 10,000-seat churches by these pastors, these mega pastors, mega mansion churches. Why don't they want me in their church? I was at Penn State last week. Right. They welcomed me at Penn State last week, or at least the church that was there. The pastor sat there, he heard my message. I said, I'm going to be true to myself here today, Pastor. I know this is the Lord's house, but I'm going to be true to myself. And we rained down the same hellfire in that church, and he sat there and nodded his head the whole time. We took on the religious establishment because we see the same thing happening there. I do have a course correction to make. I was approached by somebody yesterday, I'll talk about her next week, who came to me with some very, very valuable information, and where I'm wrong, I am going to correct the record. I feel I have to correct the record on somebody that I've attacked, and we'll do that next week. So anyways, I'm happy to be here. We got a long tour. We hope to talk about what's happening here, get your videos posted, let people know we're coming around the country, because I can tell you, as long as that bus is rolling, I'm going to keep calling down the thunder of we the people until we stand up and take this country back.
McKay! Because I got a feeling that Sasha needs just a minute to gather himself. I'm going to share one story with you, which I think is really relevant and ties in with everything Scott said and what we're going to talk about. You know, if I were a time traveler, I'd be back here in Hill Country, Texas in 1865 and 66. Because this country was truly mended by cowboys. And they came from the Hill Country in South Texas, trailing 6 million head of cattle to Abilene, Kansas, and put them on a rail car to go into Chicago, Illinois. And that meat was sent to the eastern shores of the United States that had been ravished and had no ability to feed itself post the Civil War. It was the cowboys and the vaqueros who were willing to cross rivers together, risking their life, that made it all happen. There's a little part of that that Hollywood never gets right, and we've got a Hollywood person who's going to speak later. It's never told that 40% of the cowboys who were trailing those cattle up that Chisholm Trail were freed slaves. Completely left out of the equation. That is a huge part of our nation's history, and all of us need to tap into that. But the other thing I want to say, and then I'm going to introduce the guy. If you have ever trailed cattle, that's my favorite day. I'm just telling you, trailing cattle with my daughters, it's just awesome. But cattle do not go in a group. It takes 2 or 3 leaders. And it was said that in those batches that were going from the Hill Country of Texas to central Kansas, the train of cattle was 4 wide, 4 miles long. And the real work was not keeping the front ones going, it was pushing the back ones that were lazy. So at the end of the day, when you go home, I'm going to ask you, are you going to be in the lead of the trail, or are you going to be in the back, being forced to be pushed into this freedom? That's where you need to decide. With all of that said, there's one guy that takes more verbal abuse than anybody else in this entire group since day one. If you ask Sasha Stone about Robert Steele's attitude today versus 10 days ago, he'd tell you he is mellowed a bunch. Am I lying? And you know what? No matter how much abuse Sasha Stone takes, he smiles and says, I got a job to do, I got some cattle to trail up the Chisholm Trail, and he's here now to share all that wisdom with you. Sasha
Hey, friends, say hello to the world, say hello to you. Make us proud. Thank you, Texas. Boom. Wow, great to be here. Thank you for the beautiful words. Where's it going? Where's my cup? What a man. Friends, I get less than 3 minutes because I'm not here to speak. I'm here to record. I'm here to do what the Holy Book demands that we do at this time, more than anything else, which is to bear witness. Bear witness. And what I'm doing, and the reason why I touched down on 4 continents to get here through the back door, because some folks don't want me here for obvious reasons, is because I believe that this is the onset of the biggest, most powerful conversation in the history of the world. And I'm not exaggerating. And just 60 seconds on me. I'm a mongrel, 3rd generation, white African. I grew up in a war. I lost everything that was dear to me. And I became a refugee for 9 years without a passport, without a state. Not wanted. My country, Rhodesia, no longer existed, became Zimbabwe. And I pledged to myself that one day I would find out what the jig was, what happened. I grew up with a beautiful, loving family, surrounded by beautiful, loving people. And you know what? There was no racism when I grew up in Rhodesia. It was not about that. It never was. That was a media campaign in the 70s and the 80s. Man, they broke us. They absolutely broke us. We lost everything. And I pledged that I'd find out what happened. And I've spent my life since then working that stuff out. I think I've worked it out. The same thing that played out down the spine of Africa, that was cultural and social Marxism coming in through the back door. And I see the same things happening in the West today. The same things. The difference is we've wised up. We wised up together. And we're connected. And it's not to do with the internet. The internet is symptomatic of something far more powerful. The human heart. It's activated. The galactic planes are activated. The dialectic universe is activated. There are waves of light coming in. The grace of God is a cosmological, scientific fact. There's your science. There is your science. Not Anthony Fauci. The grace of God is emerging. It is touching the souls of 7.8 billion human beings. We are standing up against the goddamn fiction of our lives. We are standing up against the goddamn government, mind control, the spells, the bombs, the poisons. Nay, nay, nay! And I'll leave you with one thing. Why I chose to come here and to be here, come what may, is because I have finally found my home. Thank you.
And let that be an example to you. It was the replacement MC that started that by herself. And every one of you followed in line. Be the leader. Sergeant Stone. All right, so up next, we often talk about why doesn't mainstream media tell our story? Why don't they get it right? So instead of just turning tail and running, we embrace that negative and we try to find out how to turn it into a positive. And the guy on our team that gets it all done comes to us from California today, Scotty Sachs. 35 years. You're not old enough to be in show business 35 years.
Good evening, Hill Country. How y'all doing? Well, we all know the 1% have infiltrated and subverted our government, our economy, and the mainstream media. They spent a lot of years doing that. The CIA in the 50s. It's public domain information. You've probably heard of Operation Mockingbird Media. They didn't stop. Today, you see guys like John Brennan and James Clapper on television, so they're still infiltrating our media. But guess what? It's our turn. The Arise USA tour is infiltrating and we're subverting the mainstream media. We've got a team of 10 people that are working with the mainstream media, television, radio, and newspapers to get the word out. And we have a team of 10, as I said. A couple of them are here. Thank you, Angela and George. We are working diligently to make sure that the mainstream media pays attention to this event. Does anybody here raise a hand, have a friend or family member that's a liberal, kind of on the left and doesn't get it? Everybody. That's why we're here. We are working hard. When we call a TV station and they hang up on us because they don't like our agenda, they don't like our press releases, you know what we do? We call them back. We don't give up. But I'm going to end quickly here on this note. It's our turn. We are the mainstream media now. We are the mainstream media. Yes, sir! I want you to be able to see my eyes when I say it. The mainstream media is done. Let me tell you why. There are antitrust suits in all 50 states against the mainstream media. We all remember the Bell telephone companies. They were taken down by antitrust suits. That's happening again. 6 companies own 90% of all the media. They're being taken down through antitrust suits, civil suits. The Covington kid sued the media. I don't remember his name, but they defamed him. They sued. He settled out of court. We hear for a couple $100 million. Donald Trump, Devin Nunes, and a host of other people have defamation suits. The suits are going to pile up. And finally, there's going to be criminal suits. Everybody want to see the heads of the network? They're going to go down in criminal suits. We're going to watch the heads of networks and the TV stations go down. I hope on their very airwaves. I hear the military will make sure of that. So, God bless you all. Have a great afternoon.
Scotty Sachs, what he just said was, take it into your own hands. Don't sit and complain about what media is not doing. Go do it. Contact them. Be relentless. But he also mentioned that we need attorneys, apparently, if we're going to pile up the suits, which I hope that isn't taken out of context, Scotty, when major media reports about what he said here. I guess before I introduce my next best friend after this week, who's an attorney, she didn't want me to tell you that, but I had to tell you about my attorney that I need to share with you. How many attorneys does it take to change a light bulb? All of them, because they want to keep you in the dark. With that said, they want an attorney who's here to shed light on the true impact, the true disadvantage of human life. We've done this.
Thank you, expression, but it's the only way to survive these days, because as the prior speaker was saying, mainstream media doesn't want to hear the truth. For the people who bring it, we're censored. And let me tell you something. When you get sad that they're censoring people, you need to take it as a win, because if you weren't telling the truth and they weren't losing, they wouldn't need to censor us. So we are at war right now. Make no mistake, we are at war, just as if Chinese foot soldiers had raced across the White House lawn yesterday. But because those Chinese foot soldiers came in a different way, we didn't see it for what it was. We haven't responded the way we would have. And to that degree, it is that much more insidious and that much more dangerous. But I'm going to tell you today how you win a war on Memorial Day weekend. You do it with two little things that you bring a whole lot into battle: courage and hope. And the good news about courage and hope is they're not something God gave you. They are something you decide to do. They are a skill you can practice. And the first thing that I want to say about courage is it is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to proceed in spite of it. They had a German hero, a World War II hero out of Germany, who said, "Show me a man who said that he was brave over there." And I will tell you, he's a damn liar, because we were all afraid. Even the Germans were afraid. But the boys who made this country what it was continue to proceed anyway despite that, and that is what we have to do today. Speaking of hope, we'll come back to hope for a second. There was a little Harvard graduate by the name of Kurt Richter who wanted to study lab rats and how long they could swim in a bucket of water. And so when he was at Johns Hopkins doing this little research, he took a bunch of domesticated lab rats and he threw them one at a time into a bucket of water to see how long the little suckers swim. And his first little specimen was not really anything to write home about. The little rat swam for about 2 minutes, got bored, pedaling around the top of the water, did a duck dive, checked out the bottom, took a big gulp of water, and that was it. Luckily, the other rats were a little better. The domestic lab rats averaged 15 minutes before they drowned. And so then, Kurt Richter decided he was going to change it up. He's like, well, those are the namby-pamby, pansy-wursy lab rats that are fed 3 squares a day by me. I'm going to get some wild rats, not these little namby-pamby lab rats, and I'm going to throw their little butts into the water. And these are the guys that jumped on Christopher Columbus's ship when things were going bad and swam to the English island. And they should be able to beat my domestic lab rats hands down. And what he discovered after he threw these caged up, pissed off, full of piss and vinegar wild rats into the water is to a little rat man, they fared way worse than the domestic ones did. So Kurt Richter leaned back in his little chair and went, I wonder why that is. And he thought, maybe it's about hope. Maybe my little lab rats knew there was a human in the equation, the guy who feeds them every darn day, and was hoping that I would come rescue their little lab rat ass, and that's why they swam so much longer than the wild rats. So he decided to put the hypothesis to a test. He rejigged the study. He put rats in the bucket of water, and right before they were about to, fly the white flag and go drowning, he rescued the little sucker. He'd dry off his little furry head, give him some, sweet nothings in his ear, tell him you can do it, buddy, and then throw him back in a second time. And the question was that second swim going to be shorter, because mind you, it was only a 30-second dry off. The guy just swam for his life and almost died. Was he going to be all spent, no gas in his tank? Was he going to make a shorter swim, a same swim, or a longer swim? And guess what? What do you think those little rats did? They did a longer swim. Anybody want, if you know the answer, don't call it out. Anybody want to take a guess on how much longer? Was it, 30 minutes? Was it 45? Was it an hour? Was it 2 hours? What do you guys think? It was 60 flipping hours. The rat was willing to give up after 15 minutes, but because somebody came to his rescue and he had hope, he swam for 2.5 more days. He swam 240 times as long as he did the first time. That is the power of hope. And I know that this last year has been dunking your little lab rat head under the water. Probably not as much in Texas as it was in California. We were getting dunked every damn minute the last month or so. rescue you. There is no Kurt Richter who's going to rescue. There is no Churchill. There is no FDR. You are going to rescue yourselves. You are the leaders that you have been waiting for. But make no mistake, you can have hope in how this ends because we know exactly how this story ends. This story ends on the side of God and righteousness and truth and justice and freedom. I want to close by talking to you about a Texas boy by the name of Audie Murphy. I didn't know about Audie until this morning, but I know a lot about him now. He was the single most decorated soldier coming out of World War II. He got every single combat medal, award, you name it, that the military hands out, including awards from foreign countries. This guy, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, was born to a sharecropper family in Hunt County. 1 of 12 kids. Daddy ran off when he was young. Mama died when he was a teen, and when he was a 5th grader, when he was 10 or 11, he went to work picking cotton. And when Pearl Harbor happened, he went over to his sister and said, help me forge some paperwork to lie about my age so I can go join up and go fight for my country. And that is what they did. One of his earliest encounters was on Yellow Beach. He and his buddy were walking across a German-controlled vineyard when they started taking heavy German fire. And he retrieved a machine gun, I think, off a German, mowed them all down. He and his buddy killed them all. And the Germans inside the house thought it would be a good idea if we surrendered. So they started waving the white flag, and when his little best friend went over to take custody and control of those prisoners of war, they cut his friend down dead. And that is when Audie said, to hell with that. And alone, he moved in on this house under still heavy direct German fire. He ended up killing 6, wounding 2, and single-handedly taking possession of 11 prisoners of war out of that house. That was one of his first encounters. A little while later, he was crawling alone. It seems to be his signature trait. Crawling alone through the Germans at Lomé, carrying a handheld radio and directing his men so that they could end up taking a hill. 35 wounded, 15 killed. They gave him a bronze oak leaf cluster to add to his earlier silver star, and they elevated him in rank to platoon leader. The day afterward, his platoon started taking heavy fire from a German sniper group. And he decided, after capturing 2, that he should shoot back, but a sniper took out his hip, and then he took out the sniper between the eyes. They took a piece of his hip muscle out. They elevated him again to company commander, and a couple days later, he sustained 2 leg wounds. That was on January 24. On January 26, his unit was ordered to hold their position, to hold the line. It's been 2 days, he's got 2 leg wounds. So they're out there fighting, and again, they start taking heavy fire, and their tanker goes up in a pile of fire, and all of the crew on the tank make a beeline out to save their butts, and Audie looks around and goes, every one of my men, run for cover and get in those trees, we're going to retreat. And once he got his men into his trees, he crawled out there alone, he got on top of that tank that was on fire, he picked up that 50 caliber machine gun, and he started laying it down and took out an entire squad coming up the ditch, entire group of Germans, and for a damn hour, by himself, he took out multiple German infantry and multiple tanks. He was wounded again. He's now got 3 leg wounds in under 3 days, and he still did not retreat. They begged him to do so, and he did not back off that field until he had stripped that damn tank out of every last bullet and piece of ammo it had, and himself. And that is when he walked off that battle, got more ammo, more men, and came back. That man, when he did all that stuff I just told you about, was 19 years old. That is courage under fire. And when they gave him a military citation, they said, and I quote, for an hour, the Germans tried every available weapon to eliminate 2nd Lieutenant Murphy, but he continued to hold his position and to hold his line. And when he was asked later, why did you take, in one of your battles, a machine gun from a German and start laying down fire and take on an entire company of German infantry? He said one word, one sentence, because they were killing my brothers. That man joined up to fight for his country, but he ended up joining actually fighting for the people standing beside him. Make no mistake, my friends, this country isn't a country because we call it a country. This country is a country because of people like you and me. And today, starting right now in the heart of Texas, we are going to start telling the people like Audie Murphy that we are going to continue to hold that line.
Only Lee Dundas could come to Texas, call y'all little rabbi asses, and you like her, because she does it the way that makes sense. Once more, Lee Dundas. All right, up next, Sandra Rose Michael. Dr. Sandra has been with us all week. She's a doctor of biophysicist, and an author, and a requested lecturer all around the world. And I think she's going to talk about kahunas. Let's give it up for Sandra.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I'm a professor of biophysics. My parents met in engineering physics. My mother was fissioning plutonium the whole time she was pregnant with me and working on the bomb, okay? She got me. My dad, the aerospace, electrical, mechanical, they were both spooky scientists, let's be real. All both top secret government scientists. I see everything in combination of engineering and physics. And so I am a professor of biophysics, so I'm going to give you a good lesson on that today. But I was born in Ohio on the farm, or at the farm, and the farm was heated by President Jackson. Everybody knows what he did, right? Yes. His big thing was to keep the banks. He kept the banks out. President Jackson, whose portrait stands behind President Trump a lot of the time. So that's some of my background in the bloodline. Martin Luther, the original protester. And I was born on Constitution Day. We were born for this time. I'm proud to be part of Sheriff Mack's the Constitutional Sheriff's Posse. Please sign up. Please sign up for that. Okay? Support the Constitution, that oath to the Constitution. We all need to stand in that power of that. Okay, so as a professor of biophysics, I'm going to give you some lessons in biophysics. Live people, let's start with, live people breathe, dead people don't. Okay, what was the freaking idea with this mask? God breathed the breath of life into man. After that, we're in a free will zone. Are we going to be continually, constantly conscious and reconnecting with that source of all power and light and love, or not? Like it's only a breath away ever. Okay, the Latin word spirare, the word spirit, comes from the Latin word spirare, which means to breathe. And this is a unity tour. So I talk about unified fields, coming together. Well, we're coming out to the communities. We're on a mission. We're coming out to the communities because we have to come together as unified fields of consciousness. We have to come together. We have to be the greater community. Are you guys going to stand up and do it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to teach you something about standing columnar waves. Okay, we have access to unlimited power, infinite intelligence, unconditional love, right? Everybody's heard about all this stuff. Should you choose to accept it? But it's time to quit sitting on your access and access that power and let that power rise up through your spine and breathe that breath of unlimited power, infinite intelligence, unconditional love. Connect with that source energy. Are you doing it right now? Breathe. Breathe all the power, all the light, all the love of the entire God force into the top of the head, down the spine, the spinal column, that brilliant column of light like a pillar in the temple. Are you willing to stand in your power upon this earth as the Christ that God got us?
Yes.
Sons and daughters, divine sons and daughters of God. You know, unlimited beings are out of control. You know, it's hard to control unlimited beings. Are you going to stand in that power? And I'm going to teach you something about, that's your standing column away. Okay, got it? That pillar. But it's the breath. You know, the deeper you breathe, the more all that power and light and love can flow through you. And you need to quit sitting on your butts and stand in that power, in that light, with that sword of truth. Because the cells vibrate. As you're breathing, I want you to be breathing all that light. You know, Christ said, I am the light of the world. Breathe all that light through every cell and every part of your cells, through all parts of you. And every cell know and remember the power of the truth, of the love of your being here now. Because we are here in oneness with that breath of the love of all life. And allow that light to go out. Let your light so shine. Let it go out to touch the hearts of all beings to feel more love, more light, enlightenment now. Because the great awakening cannot and will not be stopped. We, the people, want our country back. We're the grandmothers. I mean, we're here in the fulfillment of all the prayers, all the promises, all the prophecies of all who have gone before us. We're going to call forth all that wisdom. Now what do we want to create on this planet? And how about that creation of a new heaven and a new earth through us? And the grandmothers, we are a force. And the grandmothers to stand up. We want a planet for our grandchildren. And you've got to have big kahunas, because we need each and every one of you here to have very big kahunas and carry that sword of truth. Yes. Because it's the truth that sets us free. And you need to speak that truth into power now.
I thought you were going to forget to talk about those kahunas. It seems to me that kahunas are what's missing today. Of course, there's a lot of pet people that kind of bother me when it comes to kahunas, too. Any veterinarians in the audience? Yeah, I bet. Do you put nudicles in? Anybody know? You better get in on this, ma'am. These people are so messed up now, they think their dogs are losing self-esteem if they've neutered them, so they put artificial testicles in so their dog don't lose self-esteem walking into a dog with real testicles intact in the park. That's the kind of person we're talking about. That's the kind of person that lives in fear of everything that's happening today. All right. Up next, I don't know much about avocados. I don't know much about guacamole. I think that's fixing to change, because the guy that I've got up next is going to talk about that. He's going to also talk about planting trees, because, you know, really at the core of what we're talking about and what really drives me is that we've had this loss of understanding the cycle of life. And the more animals that we have on the planet, the more plants we need to feed the animals, the more CO2 that's absorbed from the atmosphere, and it's called the cycle of life. The guy I'm about to introduce you to understands the cycle of life, wants to be a part of it. From Houston, Texas, David Avocado!
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sandra. Thanks to the whole team. Everybody is here. I got a bombshell for you guys. I got a bombshell
this. In 2014, I started writing a book about color pigments. I went through every color pigment in the world, how it was formed, the metabolic pathways that led to every color pigment in the world. Chlorophyll, hemoglobin, they're all color pigments. Urine, it's got a color. Your poop has a color. Why does it have that color, and where does that color come from? Decomposed blood turns brown. That's where it comes from. Stercubilin. And I found out something. I found out there's a metabolic pathway, a choke point in all of nature that determines all color and all smells in nature. It's called the shikimate pathway. And that choke point is only known by a very small amount of scientists, chemists, and biologists in the world. In fact, most people, when I say it, they go, the shikimate pathway, what is that? Anybody know what the shikimate pathway is? It is that choke point. That's the metabolic 7-step pathway that leads to 3 amino acids, phenylalanine, tyrosine, and tryptophan. Those 3 amino acids form all colors and smells and aromas in all of nature. It's a metabolic choke point. There's a certain herbicide that chokes that one out, and it's called glyphosate. Glyphosate. Glyphosate attacks the shikimate pathway and disturbs the plant's ability to form color and smells to form life. As I got into the pandemic and found out what they were up to, both my parents are medical doctors. I'm designed for this. This is my moment. This is why I'm here. If I die in this fight, good. This is my moment. I was born into it when I was 7 years old and I was injected with that crap. I knew something was wrong. I ran. They came out with needles. I ran away. And I researched and I looked at, and even way back in 1994, I was selling the books on Amazon that told people what they were injecting into our kids. And I've been battling those bastards the whole time. The whole time. Del Bigtree, when he came along, I was thank you, Del Bigtree, and thank you, Mickey Willis, and thanks all the new blood that came in. So I knew what they've been trying to do. They want to get us injected. They want to get adults injected. It's not a vaccine passport. It's a... Thank you. They ain't going to stop us. They're not going to stop us. We're going to fight them. It's a slave passport. They're trying to enslave us all now. And they're trying to inject you. They're trying to inject our kids. What are they injecting into us? Well, I found out something very interesting. We have never had the SARS-CoV-2 virus isolate. It doesn't exist. Anybody want to refute me on that? Go out there, please find it. CDC, produce it. State of New York, produce it. Government of Canada, produce it. They can't produce it. It doesn't exist. That's why they can't produce it. What does exist? So I'm about to tell you what bombshell is. What happened in New York? What happened in North Italy? What happened in Tehran? What happened in Wuhan? Nothing happened in Houston. Nothing happened in Dallas. But something happened in New York. They contaminated New York with the spike protein. Their bioweapon is the spike protein. Pharmaceutical industry has been producing the spike protein for decades. How do they produce it? They have a bioreactor of cells. They impregnate that bioreactor of cells with nucleic acids. mRNA. That's right. Out the other side of the bioreactor comes the spike protein, which the pharmaceutical sells that industry sells right now today. You can get on, put into your little search engine, spike protein manufacturing. Watch what comes up. There's a price list. Here's how much you get. This is how much a milligram is. This is how much 300 micrograms is. So somebody bought a bunch and went and put it all over keyboards, went and put it all over door handles, went and sprayed it all over New York City, went and sprayed it all over North Italy. Look, this is my hypothesis. Refute it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. If you get contaminated with a spike protein, what happens? Well, children are almost unaffected because their metabolism still works. The analog, the metaphor, the shikimate pathway in the human being is what forms your adrenaline. It's what forms your norepinephrine. It's what forms your dopamine. It's what forms your serotonin, your happiness. And they're targeting that metabolic pathway, the same thing as glyphosate. They're targeting it with the spike protein. That's the part that it hits. And it affects 28 cell groups in your body. The real thing, it'll, like your lung surface, for example. So you get sprayed with it, you'll breathe it in, and it'll contaminate you. It takes about 2 weeks to move it through. The younger that you are, the healthier that you are, the quicker you move it through. You may even have no symptoms. The more comorbidities you have more weight on your body, the longer it's going to last and the worse it's going to be. And you can even spread it to other people, but it fizzles. It will fizzle. That's the problem with that strategy until you can get people injected. Then the mRNA turns that person into the bioreactor. Get it now? So that then they go and spread it to everybody else. What's the blood clotting? It's a direct result of the spike protein. How many spike proteins are in one of those little injections? 50 billion? 50 billion. Do not let Big Pharma inject you with anything, ever. Do not take... This is the ultimate end. We're going to get to the antidote, because they would not release the spike protein or the injections without the antidote, because the antidote's there. But before we get there, hang on. The drug, cut, burn, poison, Rockefeller medicine, germ theory is coming to its satanic flowering. This is its last moment, right? It's not the germ, it's the terrain. Take care of your body, take care of your immune system, you'll beat anything. I listened to my teachers 28 years ago, and they told me get the parasites out of your body, get the heavy metals out of your body, clean your body out, clean your colon out. Eat organic as best as you can. Grow your own food as much as possible. Never been sick, no chance of being sick. I'm not afraid of some little virus, this, that, the other thing. The mask wearing is really, truly a New World Order hypnosis. That's how they tell if your pineal gland's calcified, and that's how they tell if they got you under their control. That's what it is. Now, they would never release any kind of bioweapon like this without an antidote. What's the antidote? The antidote in their Rockefeller medicine is called suramin. What is it? Shikimate. It's the end product of that 7-stage process that I was talking about that leads to the production of all colors and all aromas in nature, all smells. The end product is produced in certain foods and in certain herbs. Now the big one, the big game, the one that the pharmaceutical industry produces suramin with, and the one that they use to produce Tamiflu, also contains shikimate, is pine needles. Green pine needles, brand new green ends of the clip, the ends of the tree pine needles, make a tea out of it. It's delicious. 5 pine trees here in Texas, all of them edible. There are some pine trees that are not edible, not when they're brown, when they're green. That's number 1. Number 2, star anise. Star anise has you've seen those, they're beautiful, grow really well here in Texas, one of the most gorgeous flowers in the world. In fact, shiki, where shikimate comes from, is the Japanese name for that plant. Illicium religiosa. What else? Fennel seed. Fennel seed tea. Star anise tea. Pine needle tea. Every day for all of us, because now it's not that they're just spraying us with it or contaminating keyboards with it. Remember that video that went around in April 2020 of that woman with that weird backpack on? She was Chinese, maybe she was CCP, going around and contaminating all those keyboards, and the lady's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing over there? She just hustled out there after contaminating everything. Remember that? Remember the guy, the professor who was caught by the FBI going back and forth between Wuhan over Harvard University? Remember that? What was he teaching his students over there? Well, apparently, my research has uncovered, he was teaching them how to contaminate household items with spike protein. You don't need the virus if you have the spike protein. You see that now? That's why they can't produce it. They don't need to. All they have to do is produce their variant, which is just another spike protein, put a slight different nucleic acid messenger into the bioreactor on one side. You have another variant shows up on the other side of your new spike protein. Every day, you've got to drink pine needle tea because everybody's exposed now. We're saturated in it. It's going to affect our fertility. This is a depop, right? We got to stop the depop. Stop the depopulation agenda. It's a sterilization agenda. It is not only that, it's a control agenda. That's a weaponized injection. There's no way they're going to hustle you like this. We've got a whole new standard of used car salesmanship now. Every single government, every single selectard, all of them are coming at you like, hey, get injected with this crap. No thanks. Just say no to drugs. Thank you so much, and thanks to the whole team. Really appreciate it. Thanks for following the team. Thank you.
David Avocado Wolf. A couple of things I took from that. I never want to be called avocado. Secondly, David Avocado Wolf is going to start a trend. You watch. From this moment on, everybody who comes to the stage will give these people as much face time as those people. You are a trendsetter. And the third thing I'll take from David Avocado Wolf is that all the goats in Texas are pissed because they can't eat the pine needles anymore. All right. Marlene McMillan. She's got a table out here. She is the homeschooling pioneer of America. And I think she knows a thing about it, or two, because apparently she raised 7 kids. Ladies and gentlemen, Marlene McMillan.
Thank you. Okay, welcome to the Classroom of Liberty. What do you think you learned about in the Classroom of Liberty? What do you learn about? Liberty! Oh, we're going to tell you the difference between liberty and freedom while we're here. Okay, now, one of the things I want you to understand is that people who live in liberty think differently than people who live in bondage. Okay, so I want you to be able to go away today. We're not just teaching you how to speak liberty. We're teaching you how to teach other people to speak liberty. And we have cards for you back at our table, because what has happened, social engineers have used language to change our culture. And we have unwittingly, we didn't even understand what was being done to us about the language. And so, okay, let's go back to our statement now. People who live in liberty think. So we could just put a period right there and that's true, okay? Now, people who live in liberty think differently than people who live in bondage. In order to think differently, you have to speak differently. And in order to think and speak differently, you have to be educated differently. Now, we have been across the nation into a basically re-education campaign. And in that re-education campaign, we have bought into definitions that are harmful to liberty. Okay, now every definition comes with a destination built into it. When you accept the definition, you accept where that definition is taking you. And you probably didn't even realize. Now, I know that we've got to keep moving here, so I'm going to talk to you about some words that are being used that we have innocently bought into. And before we do that, we're going to make sure everybody knows the difference between liberty and freedom. Because liberty is the opportunity to make a choice, to assume responsibility, and accept the consequences. Now, people today don't want to accept the consequences for their choices, but we're talking about accepting the consequences for our words, our thoughts, and our actions. Okay, now, and liberty, remember that word in there deals with responsibility. Okay, now, freedom is more of a license word. It's a word that says, let me do what I want to do the way I want to do. And I don't care who it hurts or what happens. Oh, as long as it doesn't hurt you. And I'll decide what that means. And so, no man has a right to do wrong. And when we talk about freedom, we're not taking the level of responsibility that we need to with our language. So I really want to encourage you to look into liberty. And I teach classes on why liberty matters, whylibertymatters.com, and I teach classes about these things all the time. Now, let's also talk about some of the words. Have any of you ever said, oh, I want my child to be taught critical thinking? Have you heard, right? And we thought that was a good thing.
Do you have a hint in that word, in critical thinking, that maybe it has something to do with critical theory? And all along, it was sneaking into our schools and sneaking into our churches and our homeschool curriculum. And we were unwittingly, especially our teachers, didn't even realize that when they were teaching critical thinking, not only were they not teaching biblical thinking, they were teaching the thinking that opens the door to the very destruction of every value that we hold dear. Okay, now let's take you a little bit further. What about the word diversity? Well, we're, in the dialectic process is what we're talking about here. And in the dialectic, that's the double speak, where a word has a common meaning that people think it means, and then the word has the meaning that it means to the initiated or the insiders. And when you buy up their definition, see, definitions are like mini contracts. And when you use a definition, you often don't think about it. You just use the word. But you didn't realize that definitions are like many powers of attorney. And when you use their language, you are giving them a power over you through the use of that language. So we have to wake up and quit using the language and method that leads to tyranny. Now there's two languages and methods. There's the language and method that leads to liberty. That'll get you a green, beautiful tree. You come get a card for free, and we'll give you that present. On the other side is the tree of bondage and tyranny. And when you use the method and the language of bondage and tyranny, what do you think you're going to get? Bondage and tyranny, right? Okay, but what we've been conditioned to do is while we think we're at least getting freedom, we're actually using the language and method of bondage and tyranny. So if you want to reverse this, you have to first of all quit using their language. You can't redefine a lot of these words. You can't be a change agent for Jesus. You can't. There's a lot of these words that people keep using, and they use them well-meaningly. But I wrote a whole book on it, so come talk to me about it. Okay, so the point is, let's talk about this word diversity. Diversity, we think it means so we all get along, we learn to appreciate each other. But what if the word diversity meant that you are being trained to take up values that are diverse or different from the Word of God, from the Constitution, and from everything that leads to liberty? So it's time, instead of us being sent to re-education camp, or us being sent to sensitivity training, which is re-education camp, it's time for us to send them to First Amendment Constitution.
She can homeschool my girls anytime. Hell, she can homeschool me. Hey, I just want to say something about Hill Country before I introduce Tina. And that is, I remember the first time I came here. I remember I got friends, Clark and Amy Barons, I don't know if they're here. Barons feed, seed at Ludenbach, stop by, buy some deer feed, some cat feed, whatever. But I came, I spent some time, they've been friends for 25 years. We came to Fredericksburg, we went in the area, and I went home telling everybody, people talk about Houston, Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio. The best kept secret in Texas is Hill Country. I got bad news for you. I learned this week 38,000 to 40,000 people a weekend come to Hill Country, Texas. Apparently you fixed the best kept secret, but you took the bull by the horns and found a way to make it happen. Hats off to everybody in the entire region of Hill Country, Texas. We want to call her the counterculture mama. I don't know if she's packing or not. It's up to you, Frisker, to find that out. But I do know she's packing a lot of knowledge. She grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. Don't ask her about the Packers. I'm just saying she's a true cheesehead. She currently lives in Tennessee with her husband and her family and 5 kids. We got some fertile folks on this stage right here. And today she saw what has happened and is here to empower you to help fix it. Tina Griffin.
for the last 20 years exposed in Hollywood with the show I call Hollywood Exposed. After I saw the garbage, when I moved out to Hollywood, I couldn't shut up and just remain silent. I've had death threats, I've had witch ovens, however you want to say it, attack me. I've had school assemblies canceled last minute, and people try to sue me, people try to kill me. I got out of my home about 3 years ago, I should have been dead with my 4 kids. But God told me how to front over for a play date. I did. That caused him to freak out, so there was a lot of people in the house. He pulled a huge honking knife out, maybe about a foot long, so waved it in my face, and I said, hell no. Probably some other swear words I shouldn't have said, that's what I felt at the time. He told me to line up all my kids. There was 8 kids over at the time, and I basically grabbed the knife, the bottom part where he was holding it, it freaked him out, he pushed me down a flight of stairs, and took off. And we got him the very next day. And it was while I was putting together a show to speak at a local high school the very next day. So I can tell you this, what I learned over the last 20 years of almost being dead about a half a dozen times is God's not going to take us out till it's our time to go. So with that said, be bold and do exactly what God's calling you to do, because you know what, I'd rather be out in the game when he comes back for rapture if we're dying for our faith. I don't think I'm dying as an old person in America. I think he's right around the corner, I really do. Than being a bench warmer or just watching a bunch of YouTube clips every day, knowing knowledge but not doing anything about it. So, we have the power of God's giving us the words. We have come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. These are the infamous words of the great Martin Luther King Jr. The silver lining around COVID, you guys, is that people are waking up. I believe COVID, certification of vaccine ID, which is exactly what it stands for, has caused people to wake up and realize what the heck is going on. Who's trying to kill us? Who's trying to educate our kids? And what kind of garbage are they looking at? These kids are coming back home now, public school education in Williamson County where I live. The parents are being told to sign waivers to say they'll stay out of the same room while the kids are educating online. Hell to the no. That should tell you there's something going on with Bill Gates' sex-saturated Common Core curriculum that's filled with communism from the pit of hell that they're trying to indoctrinate our kids by. So thank you, COVID conspirators, because you're going to burn in hell unless you place your faith in Christ. I have not really prayed like I should for Bill Gates, maybe I should. But the cool thing is right now we are waking up. Millions of people are waking up to what's going on. You Texans know what's going on. You're awake, not woke. I drove in with these buses with all these amazing people, three dozen people come in, and I start crying on the bus because I'm realizing that there's a lot of us that love our country and are willing to take a vote. Right. So we need to, what can we do? I love to be solution driven. So I'm like, what can we do about this? Well, we got to keep informing the masses about what freedoms are being under attack. There's a lot of masses, a lot of young people right now are believing mainstream media. George Soros owns media. I learned that firsthand when I was living in Hollywood. He tells me what to say. Thousands of newscasters on the camera. Today, in Washington, I'm like, okay, can you take your eyes off the teleprompter, get your butt outside and see what's going on in Washington. Stop lying and taking a paycheck knowing you're leading a lot of people astray and lying to people. I can't go to bed if I know I lied to somebody. What are the 5 main freedoms? Because people don't know what freedoms are because of Bill Gates' Common Core-based education system. Most people 30 and under, you ask them what are freedoms, they won't know because they were raised by the garbage in the public schools. Here are the top freedoms guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, which make us patriots of the United States of America, the freest in the world. Freedom of speech. What they do, throw a mask on us. That parasites come crawling out of when you throw it over a steam. And on top of that, these were made from China. Like, I don't want to trust China for a free mask at Costco. Freedom of religion. They try to chop that down. Churches, they can't stay open, but porn strip clubs can. Really. Find a church that does stay open. I don't care if you go in the middle of the field with a megaphone. Make it happen. Form your own churches. Freedom of assembly, getting together. We prove that's still happening today here in Texas. The right to petition the government. What does that mean? Petition is the right to ask government at any level to right a wrong or correct a problem. We know a lot of problems going on. And if our government officials don't right the wrong and they're doing something illegal, they need to be canned. Immediately. And we're thinking who can be run for office. I have a bunch of text strings. I get a couple hundred texts
say I'm not joking because people are like, look at this, watch that. And people were talking this morning about people that can run in Nashville for upcoming offices. I'm like, why don't you ladies run? We'll vote for you. You guys run. Run for office. Why not? All right, so right now the elites working for China are trying to hijack our country and attack every major freedom we have. Heck no, not on my watch, not on your watch. I had that written down and you said it. I'm like, you take my phone, Google Spygate and download that poster. It'll blow your mind who's married to who and who we got to pray for and not follow. So what is this evil plot? Back in 1963, the Naked Communist book, you gotta grab it, has 45 communist goals listed in there. If you'll notice, the top ones I care about a lot because I went to Hollywood are entertainment based. Goal 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Done. Goal 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. Really, they're doing that and they're calling our truth and censoring our truth. Why? I'm currently in jail again 500 times on Facebook. We know they're controlling everybody and everything. And who runs Facebook and runs and pays for the fact checkers? Bill Gates. He's the one that funds the fact checkers. Any kind of information, like, I'm going to expose Bill Gates, watch it go down and there it is. Goal 25, hopefully 15 people saw it pouring down. Break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio and TV. And goal 26, present homosexuality and promiscuity as normal, natural, healthy. That is why the entertainment industry, which is anything but entertainment, loads our current media with these anti-family, anti-God messages. It's a communist move to take over our children. Satan goes down, guys. We know this. Jesus went and is coming back again very soon. God will not take us up until our time to go. So for over 20 years, I've been exposing the Hollywood hypocrisy and literally exposing the utter hogwash. I was on 90210, Meryl's Place, down the field, Drake and Josh, a ton of shows all over the place. Went to the Oscars, worked at Limited Film, was part of the Film Society, so I got to look at movies ahead of time and say, take all those 14 minutes and now you got to put a movie. Went to Playboy Mansion, I stayed outside and was fully clothed. But I will tell you, in the opportunity roles I went because I was like God's undercover FBI agent. What info can I get right now so I can warn the masses about the garbage going on? I saw a lot. Now kids watch or read or look at 70 hours worth of entertainment every single week. Wow. And they're in Bill Gates' classrooms in this country primarily for 40 hours a week. Unbelievable. I believe these are the top 2 ways our kids are being indoctrinated. So a little background here, Mel Cowell's Gail Hay became a follower of Christ at 16. I got a VHS copy of the Clinton Chronicles and my life was changed. Went out there to Hollywood, saw how they basically glamorize all of these negative, harmful behaviors while showing the consequences. And our kids suffer as a result. So what did I do? And I got some ideas for you guys. I threw on an abstinence t-shirt on set. I had people say, wait, abstinence, like no drugs? Yeah, no drugs, no sex. Really? There's a virgin in Hollywood. I'm like, yep, until I get married. And I waited 29 years, 51 weeks, but who's counting? But that's the message I wanted to tell America's children. You can wait. Britney Spears was bawling on Barbara Walters regretting her sexual relationships in the past with Justin Timberlake and everybody else. So my question to you is, what kind of shirt can you wear to make a statement, a conversation starter? What kind of cross necklace, Bible you can carry with you all 24/7? Who can you invite to church? Who can you have over for dinner? What petition can you start? What Planned Parenthood can you go with friends and save some babies? I did that with my 4 kids 2 weeks ago. 2 babies were saved as a result of like 200 people gathering together praying and talking. So back in the days, we had TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, Little House on the Prairie, Green Acres, Hillbillies, Hee Haw, Home Improvement. Today we have Junk Like Riverdale, which promotes baby sacrifice. Check out the trailer, it'll make your want to throw up. Sabrina the Teenage Witch I worked on. It's not a comedy today for children that members of Sabrina. In that movie, they literally, one of the top shows watched by our youth today, they are having seances, real seances, by hiring real witches that come on set. And millions of our kids are now joining satanic clubs, witchcraft is skyrocketing. It's because of the trash going in their brains. So here's what we gotta do. It's pop culture purge time, people. Download, I have an app, Counterculture Mom app, download it. You have to download the app, Counterculture Mom, download it. Text the word America. This is going to allow us to stay in touch with you. You guys are getting all those, the people that join forces. Text the word America to 33777 so you can know what's going on, how the nation media is lying, what we can do to make a difference. Throw on the bird pile, Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Friday the 13th, Mortal Kombat. It's teaching kids how to kill cops. It's ridiculous. And have sex with prostitutes. And tell your friends to stop purchasing this garbage and take your kids to Mount Rushmore. Or the art. You guys know Kennedy Island has a creation museum and the art out there. It is amazing. I bawled before I got out of the car. My husband shed some tears too. So we can't give anything a foothold. You'll not be able to gain ground if we don't. And if our kids see us doing something that's patriotic and willing to die for a cause, they're going to follow in our footsteps. So we don't have to all the time try to catch up and replace corrupt political figures and leaders, or not leaders, traitors in our country, but actually have our kids know how our country was founded. So let's do that. Text America 33777. Right now, I'll leave you with this. 30 seconds?
No.
All right. Work hard, pray often, never give up. Our time is now to win back our country or die trying.
Just one observation, Tina. They might have beat you to the t-shirt. God bless Texas! Do you really want to try to follow all this, or want to call it a day? Oh, they think you're up to it. All right. Who says we're saving the best for the last? We save the guy for last, and in case we run out of time, we don't care if he gets the microphone. I'm kidding. In case I had to tell you. From the Urban Health Alliance, Kevin Jenkins.
Well, before I start, at least we can stand up for the flag that's waiting for us, correct? Can we stand up for America? Can we stand up for Texas? Can we stand up for our family? Can we stand up for hope? And I want to tell you, we're these wonderful, powerful human beings who are risking their lives every day a standing ovation. And that's what they want. They're being attacked every day. They're being censored every day. They're being told, everybody in the world is saying, they're spreading lies, but I believe they're spreading truth, right? My name is Kevin Jenkins. I am the grandson of Willie Mae Jenkins, the grandson of Wesley Jenkins, the grandson of Malcolm Green and Sally Mae Green, and my adorable parents, Wesley and Willie Mae Jenkins. And I tell you that because I'm rooted in truth, I'm rooted in family, I'm rooted in love. And I've come out here to talk to you today about something that's important to me because I've been around the country all this year. I've been everywhere during COVID, whatever you want to call it, in every state, 23 states. And I got up one day and I called my partner and I said, you know what, I'm tired of talking, we have to take action. The question to me that is most paramount to everything that they said is what are we going to do about it? They're taking our children away from us. We're sending them into those crazy schools, I call them factories of death. You have government officials that lie to you every day and they've abandoned you every day. And they still abandon you every day. They close down your churches, and Zoom in Jesus, now they open up your churches and sell you the devil's product. But we keep going. We keep going in. We keep making up excuses. We keep trying to figure out a way to make it better. But the only way to make it better is that we need to stand and take action. This is the year that we have to do it. We can't stand by, continue to intellectualize it. Look, you know, I had a conversation with some people yesterday here in Texas about race. And I'm tired of talking about it. So I'm not going to spend that much time. So I got my own theory. If we stop talking about black and white, we don't have to talk about anything else. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on this year. I told my wife, my name is Kevin Jenkins, I'm a human being, and I live amongst other human beings, and I want to save the world. The reason why I'm saying that is because every time we say black and white, we're selling their garbage. Every time we get up and say, Kevin, what are we going to do about race? I say, stop talking about it. The question is, what are we going to do to fight to save humanity? Time's on the line now. You think it's not on the line. See, some of you go home, you turn on that big pharma news and you watch it again. Some of you get up on a Sunday and you go and talk about Jesus with the wrong pastor. Some of you go into the supermarkets that make you wear masks, and you say, I'm only wearing masks because I'm just not trying to harm them. I'll say, hell no! See, because if you don't fight, you lose everything. And I'm going to fight. But see, my wife asked me today, she says, Kevin, you know, what are people saying out there around the country? Because see, I'm around the country. I've spoken to thousands of people. I've shaken their hands. I've sat at their tables. I'll listen to what they say. What is the paramount thing that they say? What is the one critical thing that they say? How can we save America? This is my America. This flag here, my ancestors fought for this flag. My ancestors died for this flag. My ancestors sacrificed their life, even though they came in as slaves. They knew how important it was to make sure they preserved the country, that they raised their families in and built their communities, and they knew that there would rather be no place on earth, even though they came in across the Pacific as a slave. Now we got to stop it. We got to stand together. We got to understand God, and we got to seek God's courage. Because I think you lost God's courage. I think you don't know what God's courage is. You talk about God all the time, but you don't understand that God's courage. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stand up for America? Are you going to stand up for your children? Are you going to stand up for truth? Now, I got to tell you this. I got some black people back in New Jersey saying, well, God damn, what can I say? You know what I'm talking about? I live in the real world. I love people no matter what tribe they're from. I love people no matter what community they're from. I love people because guess what? I was touched by a lot of people. A lot of people gave me love and embraced my life and gave me opportunity. I didn't ask them, well, I don't want you to give me opportunity because you're white. And you know what? I want to tell all of you white folks today. I'm going to talk to white folks. If I hear you ever talk about white privilege again, I'm going to shoot myself in the mouth. Because I damn sure don't know what it is. I probably got more privilege than you. I'm just astounded when I hear people talking about, well, I think maybe I had a little better opportunity. No, you didn't. See, I believe in God, I believe in country, I believe in ownership, I believe in education, and I believe that my destiny is about my destiny. I am not a victim. I am not a victim. It's not a victim. I don't raise my children to be victims. I raise my children to be leaders. Now, what we have to understand is that we are under assault. The human body, the human spirit, the human soul, the very breath that you breathe is under assault. The shame of mass has been strapped upon your mouth to stop you from breathing and thinking and loving. But the question is, what do you do about it? You going to get up in the morning, young ladies, and put on your makeup and not look at yourself in the mirror and knowing that they're trying to take your children away from you? Every time I go in every city, I make sure I take a picture with a child. Because I want everybody in this country, everybody in this world to know that I'm going to fight for those children with my dear life. Yes, sir! The question is, when you leave here, after all of these things these wonderful people laid out for us, what are you going to do about it? I'm ready to kick down the doors. See, I don't want my government talking to me, passing stupid laws that every time another group comes in, they change. I want control over the government that I found. I want control over the government officials that I elected, and no one's going to tell me what to do. Now, they got you all twisted. You guys keep calling it a vaccine passport. I call it a slave passport. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. There was a time in my life when I used to travel with my parents to go to the South. I had to put fried chicken in the car. I never understood why. I had to put my sheets and my pillows in the car. I never understood why. I never knew that when we were driving down to South Carolina, because I'm a Geechee, right? I never knew that my body was under assault every time we got on that road. That the Green Book was to create a vehicle for us to be able to go and be safe. Now, I'm telling you, if you allow those people, those evil people, those tyrants, to tell you if you are healthy or not healthy, and you got to show proof, then we have failed this country. I saw something earlier today that struck me as really strange. They were saying, USA. But y'all didn't really say USA the right way. Y'all said it all softly, huh? USA, USA. USA, USA. I saw it out there, but then, is this really USA? Am I in the middle of Texas? Is this Texas? I just left Memphis, right? I just left Arkansas. I left USA! USA! That's why they know they got you. Now I'm going to get up the stage because Trinity's standing to my right. That's the boss here. I want you to do me one favor because I want to make sure I do this every place I go because I want to make sure I'm talking to human beings. I'm afraid that sometimes I'm not talking to human beings. I want all of you to hug each other and show the world that we are human and that we're going to fight for our lives. Can you hug each other? 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 All right, see, that is what America is about. That is what family is about. That is what faith is about. That is what community is about. That's it. That's America. That's USA. Now, I'm going to leave the stage, but I want you to know one thing for certain, one thing for sure. I'm speaking to you as an American. Not a black American, not a Greek American, not a Jewish. I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of it. Now, the more you get angry about that, the more we free ourselves of these evil people that are trying to take everything from us. So let's give these people a standing ovation.